Hi everyone, Casey Mullaney here from CaseyMullaney.com. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is faith. Last night, a friend of mine and I were chatting about this book that she was reading and like something that came up with me that day. And I ended up kind of like mentally and to her going off on this like tangent and I wanted to share little bits of that today. One of the things that I really find is where people confuse faith and religion often, and I can completely understand why, because a lot of us start our faith or base our faith off of a religion, but it doesn't mean that that's everything to do with your faith. Your true faith really is connecting to something higher than yourself, knowing there's something more than you, and believing that there's something bigger, believing in what's possible, believing in things that are unseen, believing in, just your belief, like your core beliefs, your core, what you feel to be true, is really more your faith. Now again, like this can start from religion, but faith is just so much more than that. Faith is part of knowing when you feel guided to move forward in a direction. I know I talk about intuition often, and or I talk about, intuitiveness or paying attention to your gut reactions or your gut feelings. Part of that all comes from your faith, from you believing and feeling called towards something, or feeling like that is like the right next step for you, or that is the right, like, that's what's going to keep you safe. Sometimes we get these gut reactions not to do something, or these like things that we don't totally understand, to kind of guide us and lead us to either keep us out of harm's way or lead us down the right path. And that's all a part of your faith. It doesn't have to be. Faith is very different than a really specific set of rules or, religious doctrines and things like that. Faith is truly your connection, how you hold inside of you, this belief and other beliefs that you hold. So I know for me, in case you're not familiar with my backstory, I know that I've talked about this in the past, but I know I went in depth with it was in my membership, so I don't think, I kind of confuse sometimes things that that I've said and that I haven't said, and I also know that there's people that watch these videos that have not seen previous stuff. So if you've heard this, bear with me, but if not, I think it's important. So my faith started from an incredibly young age. I remember being told that God was all around me, and so I took that as fact, and I actually stayed in constant communication with God. I involved him in my play. I involved him, in anything I did, and like just minor decision making, he was just there. So why not? And I saw God as this loving figure. This is what I had in my mind with this loving grandfather figure. And so it was easy to see that as a person being around me all the time, or a being around me all the time. It was easy to include that, and it was easy to take that so literally in a way. And that's truly something that I want for other people, is for them to feel that, and especially not just at maybe a young age, but like throughout their life. And sorry, I'm having messages pop up on my screen. It's distracting me. And I really want that more innocent faith to be, something that other people can experience. And part of what helped feed that later in my life was this wasn't even later, but just in my spiritual growth, was my dad had this great way of explaining faith versus religion. I grew up in a mixed religious family, but it was a mixed religious family with like core similar beliefs. And so my dad really did an amazing job describing that, this is the religion, pieces. These are, and I love that he used to say these are like the man rules, and please do not take offense to that. But, we are human, and we are, capable of screwing up. And if you look at histories of religion and stuff, and it's just I won't go into all that. I could go on a long tangent of that. But essentially this is this is the religion, but this is the faith. This is what, the beliefs are. These are the core beliefs of all of these. And that was something that really stimulated my spiritual growth so much more. On top of that, I grew up in a more liberal Catholic church, so with lots of mixed religious families. So it wasn't in that core area, and especially growing up very young, I did not see a lot of that judgment around people having, maybe slightly different beliefs than the other. It was all about connecting to God. It was all about connecting to your faith, your core faith. So that's really how I kind of grew my faith. It initially started, with these religious pieces, but also, in paying attention to that my faith was separate from that my faith was truly something different. It was something that was private. It was actually something I kept incredibly private. I was not able to speak on this, actually speak on this without getting incredibly emotional until I was 25, 26, maybe older. I'm trying to remember the exact time frames. Probably, I think 26 was the first time I was able to really speak on my faith without just falling to pieces. And I did initially, but I got stronger and stronger in being able to communicate it. And it was just because it was so personal. Because that's something I do believe with faith is very, very personal. It's your personal connection to God. It's your personal connection to your higher being. And I know I've said this in the past, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this now. God is a word I'm very comfortable with, but I know I've known many people who struggle with that term because of past negative experiences. If that's a hard term for you, the universe is great, source energy, the big kahuna, whatever you want, whatever is a loving connection for you to that higher power that allows you to grow that faith and grow that initial connection. So anyways, so today I just kind of wanted to chat a little bit about, growing your faith, and especially if you're starting from nothing. I've had conversations with people who come from very strong religious backgrounds all the way to atheists. And what's interesting is when we start chatting is a common denominator that people are surprised by with me is how easy my faith tends to be for me. And it's not, and also how open I am. And it's not because, I agree with being an atheist or I agree with being really strong into a certain religion. It's because I do know that my faith is based in a place of love and not judgment. And also that this is all about building whatever is best for you and whatever connects the best with you. If you can associate more with something more separated from religion and terms more separated from religion, then that's going to bring you a stronger connection initially and, in the long term. If you've been really into your religion and you really love every piece of it, because I can understand loving certain traditions. There's certain traditions I still really love from Catholicism. I love Mass and things like that. There's things I really do love about it. And I can see where that can grow for you. Then that's, then stick with that and stick with, the ways you feel connected. But the point is to start by just seeing how you feel connected. And how I really start helping people feel more connected is by teaching them how to just feel a presence of love, starting to feel just that loving presence around you. And then start a conversation. It does not have to be a formal conversation. I think one of the things that really trips people up is, I don't know if you know this, there are there's reasons why people have prayer hands like this or in the older, more stricter religions, because they believe that if you did this, it was pointing your prayers downward, all this kind of stuff. There's all these crazy things that, I can see where they might hold a basis for somebody, but you don't have to follow all these rules to create a faith. You don't have to find a religion, especially if you're not connecting to a religion, to create a faith. You also don't have to leave your religion to create a faith, a stronger faith. It really is about you just starting to communicate with however it feels comfortable to you to a higher power. If you feel better having, a short conversation, if you feel better being, open and just saying this is what's going on and just standing there, you know, in a quiet space or sitting in a quiet space, I know one of the things that I find helpful is I always light a candle. If I can. There's been times where I've, you know, obviously, you know, I've been doing this forever. So, and when I was really young, I obviously didn't light candles. But one of the things when I'm taking very specific meditative or prayer time, and especially when I use, you know, my little area that I use for that, I tend to light a candle. Sometimes I light incense as well. I've had different arrangements of candles. It's whatever helps you feel connected to a presence. And one of the things about a candle is you see that flame there, and that flame can kind of represent something to speak to, especially if it's something new to you and you're just like looking to something to speak to. When I was about oh gosh, when was that? From like 10 to, you know, the end of me living in my parents' house, I had all these glow in the dark stars in my ceiling, and that's actually how, like, I would communicate to certain stars. And it's not because I thought those stars were like actually God, but that was my focal point for speaking to God. You know, I knew that he could, you know, come through in any means. You know, I knew he was all around me, and rather than just speaking in general directions or whatever, you know, I had a focal point to speak to. So I would use that. When I went off to college, I actually used the smoke detectors. They have these little lights on them, in case you've never noticed. So in like hotel rooms and stuff like that, they usually have like a little green light. And so I would use that as my focal point because it was a light, it was an energy, and it was, you know, just a means of a focal point. So I wasn't drifting off to sleep, especially because a lot of times I would, you know, communicate with God while lying in bed. And if you have a focal point, you know, then you're more focused, and you're not you know, just trailing off or like I am doing this moment. So you're not just getting all caught up in your words. So, but anyways, that's what I recommend starting. Is I recommend, if this is something, you know, that you're struggling with, whether you're on one end of a spectrum or another, or this is something you want more of in your life, I recommend starting with like just a conversation, and I recommend just kind of disregarding some rules on how to communicate, and just start by communicating, and start with something that gives you something of a focal point to look at, just so that you can, you know, kind of have something to speak to. And just reminding yourself that God is all around and is a loving presence, and just to kind of try to feel that love around you, and just have a conversation just like you would have, you know, with a close friend or whoever you might be speaking to. So anyways, I'm gonna hop off here, but I hope this is helpful. Let me know any thoughts that come up for you, if this is something that you struggle with. I do offer, I call them spiritual-based God lessons. I do help women, especially women. I don't exclude men, but I do help women who struggle, you know, with that connection and want to bring more of that connection into their life. So anyways, I hope you're having an awesome day. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.